Dr. Jazz.
And thanks for taking the time that we found like an hour in the schedule. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really sorry that it took this long. Life has just been.
I know. We have also a 8-month old daughter, so I know how it is. I mean, you have kids also, so it can get hectic. So
Yeah.
But yeah. But cool, man.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's fun, but you get you know the things under the eyes and like yeah.
Yeah.
But Fabian, I'll just jump in, man. I want to start this talk, but by asking you, I listened so much to This Land's Bounce with Life, and I really love that record and the writing especially. And how do you? I will just start with like, how do you usually write? When I listen to a tune like Benjamin or Folklorism or all those tunes, which are beautiful. The melodies are amazing, but they're so tight also. And like, how do you come up with, let's say, Benjamin? What's the story behind the tune usually, or what's your process when writing?
I actually get asked that question a lot, and I never know how to answer it. But I guess I spend throughout my life, I spent a lot of time listening to music and being open-minded, just analyzing musical compositions from a lot of different genres. And I hope that by doing that, I don't have to think so much when I'm composing. I'm hoping that I've internalized some method. But for a tune like Benjamin, just thinking back on when I wrote that, I think I was just trying to find a way of sort of letting the melody sort of guide me rather than me try to impose something on it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just motivically, I find a cell that I like, and then I just try to find a way of developing that. The album was very much inspired. Well, it was inspired by a few different things, but me going back to Cuba after 23 years, excuse me, was certainly one of them. And although Benjamin isn't explicitly or overtly about Cuba, it does deal with, when all animals are the same, but some are more equal than others, is the saying in the book. So there is a section in that piece that does have a very Caribbean rhythm in it, and that's a very sort of deliberate thing that I did do.
Reference kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and it's also supposed to sort of depict Benjamin, who's the donkey, in Animal Farm. But the main melody itself, it's just trying to find a direction that it goes in without having too much of an agenda, without having a formula in mind. Just finding. I think people that sculpt say that they're trying to find the shape in the rock. So I guess that's what I'm.
Does it come fast with you when you have like an initial idea, or do you like work on a tune for a long time, or does it like pop out?
It's different for all of them. There's certain tunes that have taken me years to write, others weeks, months, and there's some there's a tune I wrote called Sol del Mar, which was just one sitting, and it just came out. So yeah, it really varies.
Yeah. How do you get yourself comfortable in those environments that you create? Because rhythmically those tunes are sometimes really heavy, right? And how have you learned to play in those, like 17 or 11 or whatever it is? I mean, so sometimes it's even more complex, I think, but like, do you practice a lot, like with a metronome, those tunes, or like how did you get that together?
Well, before I was a parent, yes, I had some time to to
Yeah,
work on that. And I remember the very first purchase that I made. Actually, I think it's here somewhere. Yeah, I was using it the other day. The very first purchase that I made after I got my first check for going on a tour was the fanciest metronome I could find at the time, and that would have been in 2007. And I still have that metronome.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, and Henry Cole, the drummer
Yeah.
that plays in the albums, he, I asked him pretty much the same question: how do you get comfortable with these tunes? And he says that one of the main ways that he studies or that he tries to get comfortable with certain rhythms or time signatures is that he will take a rhythmic cell and then shift it over either a 16th note or a triplet or an 8th note, and just do it on every beat that it could fall on until you get so comfortable that you're not really thinking about it. But yeah, I mean, I speak to students and my peers a lot about this as well. And I think at a certain point, you just have to, take a chance too. There's only so much that you can do in terms of doing it the quote unquote right way. At a certain point, if you want to make music, you have to take risks and just jump off the cliff. And if you land, great. If you don't, there's still music happening.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, especially for drummers, I found it fascinating because, you give them a lead sheet with all this amazing stuff. I did like a tour years ago with Tyshawn, sorry. And I had like, 7 pagers, all tunes, odd meters. And like on the first gig, second gig, he didn't have the lead sheets anymore. And I was like, how do you do that, man? And he was like, I don't know, I just play. I was like, what are
He's
you
not normal.
No. But like Henry's the same. Like, when I listen, it's so effortless, but it's for me.
I've seen Tyshawn do that multiple times.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, those guys.
Yeah, I saw Tyshawn once rehearse with Vijay Iyer some really hard music. I just remember he looked at the music and then he put it away. This is before even playing it. And then he played it for the rehearsal without looking at the music.
Wow.
And then the night of the concert, there were 2 pianos on stage. And in the middle of the gig, he got off the drums and started playing that really hard tune on the piano without the music. And it's just, he's not normal. He really is not a normal specimen.
No. Have you ever played with him, by the way? I mean, talking of Tyshawn?
No, I've never ever played with Tyshawn.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Would think kind of that you would go there, but interesting. But this Land is like the album is this the last one you made, or are you working on something new nowadays? Like, or what's happening there as a band leader, I mean, for you?
Yeah, that was the last album. I think it was in 2019.
19, yeah.
With the pandemic, with the pandemic, my life changed a lot. My wife and I spent about 1.5 years in Australia.
Oh, really?
And I did record a little bit. I recorded there a little bit, but nothing that I've put out. And then when I came back to the US, I have a son who's 2 years old.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, I wanted to be around more. I didn't want to be traveling as much. A lot of things came out of me that I didn't know were there when I had a son. I really want to be a good father. I want to be present. So I kind of slowed down a little bit. I slowed down as a composer, performer, and as a label owner.
Yeah.
And I've always cared a lot about climate change and environmental justice. So I made the choice of going back to school. I'm pursuing a PhD at Harvard now that deals with music and climate change and sustainability.
Oh, wow. How do you connect?
It gives me an opportunity.
I mean, what's the thesis about?
I'm figuring it out right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of it's a huge umbrella, climate change. There's environmental justice, there's sustainability, there's conservation, there's a lot. So right now I'm researching the history of how music has intersected with that since the 60s and 70s.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, I mean, just as a touring musician, I spent a lot of time in jazz clubs and concert halls, and I just felt like that, there's definitely something to be learned in that environment. But I kind of wanted to step back, and the clock ticks throughout life, and I didn't want to regret not doing this at some point to learn more about these issues so that I can contribute back to society. So having said that, yeah, I've taken some time away from what my life used to be like, but now that my son is a little more independent,
Yeah.
it's starting to look like this fall, I'm gonna try to plan out doing a recording and starting more a leader things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Looking forward, man. I mean, I love your work as a band leader.
Thank
I mean, it's fantastic. Like, it's just your composing. I'm looking forward to your compositions. That's like the main. I mean, obviously you're a monster on piano as a player, but just the tunes are always like, like, ooh, damn, where did this come from? I love that. But, how did you become interested in the climate change? When did that begin for you? Since you mentioned the subject.
I don't know. I feel like since I was a kid, I've always I've found the natural world very mysterious, very beautiful. I grew up in Cuba, so in the Caribbean, there's a lot of nature. There was a lot of pollution in Cuba as well, and then we lived in Mexico for a while. And El DF, which is now called Mexico City, there's a lot of pollution there as well. And then once we got to Florida and Miami, the Everglades, I grew up near the Everglades, and I saw a lot of pollution. There's a lot of issues going on with the non-endemic species and chemicals that are ending up in the soil and the water. So I don't know. I've always just cared about that, and once I moved to the Bronx, that's when I really saw and experienced firsthand environmental racism and environmental injustice. So in more of an urban setting, that's what I mean. There's a lot of different angles when it comes to the issue of climate change and sustainability. And within the music industry, like most of the arts, it's sort of a very egocentric, whether we want it to be or not, just by the mere nature that there's an artist making art. Just it kind of felt like it was a little too much of me, and I wanted to. It didn't sit well. Just with me personally, there's plenty of musicians and artists that I absolutely love, and I'm completely happy with them being me, because I feel like what they produce is like good medicine for the world. So keep having that. But me personally, I just wanted to educate myself a little bit more on that topic and come at it with a little more depth and understanding of the science behind it as well.
Oh, that's cool. It's good. Yeah, there are other things than music also. I mean, that's like I love that. You know Jerome Harris, right? The bass player.
Yeah.
I did this interview like 2 years ago, and I asked him about band leading, and he did those really beautiful band leading records in the 90s. And he said, like, well, man, first of all, yes, I'm a musician, but then he said, like, but I'm also like a father, a husband, and a human being. And I was like, man, that's like, and it's basically what you're saying now, it's kind of very similar, I think, in a sense. That's it's so important also for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't remember where I got this mantra, but for me, life is not about music. Music is about life. That's the way that I kind of view it all.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, so true. But I wanted to ask you, being a piano player and coming from Cuba, and the Chucho Valdez, of course, and Gonzalo and all these guys, like, but what was the main trigger for you that you started playing piano, especially going into jazz? I mean, you remember like a specific moment or an artist you saw? Like, what happened?
Well, the instrument itself, it's not very complicated, and I think a lot of people have started playing the piano this way. I have an older sister. She's 4.5 years older than me, and I think I was like 6 or 7 years old when she started taking piano lessons. And for me, my sister was the center of the universe. I thought she was the coolest human being on earth, and anything she did, I wanted to do. So I started taking piano lessons with the same teacher, and her name was Cuckoo, and she was in her 90s, a very, very old lady who had very, very good ears. She would step out, go to the kitchen or something, and if you played a wrong note, she would yell it out from the kitchen. So that's how I started playing. And I remember as a kid going back home. She lived just around the corner from where we lived, and so I remember that night after the lesson, it was my first time ever practicing how to play the piano. And I remember it was an immediate sort of respect that I had for the craft. I could tell that this was just a game. It is game, it is play-like, but I could tell that it was a very, very powerful thing that could make a huge difference in the world. Yeah. Because I immediately felt all these emotions. So from the beginning, I had a lot of respect for it. Then we fled Cuba. We crossed illegally into Texas through the Mexican border. Wow. And my parents only had $50 at the time. So we were very poor for years. And I used to go practice at a piano store in Miami because we didn't have a piano ourselves. And this nice older woman offered to give me classes, but my parents couldn't afford. So she put me in touch with a woman named Conchita Betancourt, who to this day, I attribute everything that I have in my life to her, because she gave me free piano lessons for 3 years. And helped me prepare to audition for New World School of the Arts, which was a public magnet arts high school in Miami. So yeah, I owe her everything. So that was something else that reaffirmed that sort of solemn respect that I have for the craft and musicians. She didn't charge my parents anything, but she did expect a lot from me. She said that she had faith in me and that I had to have faith in myself, which to this day I struggle with. But it's just knowing that somebody believed in me so much, that there's nothing like that. That support is invaluable. And as far as jazz, there were a few things that kind of perked my ear to it, but sort of one of the most defining moments were when I was going to New World School of the Arts. Obed Calvier, the drummer, he went to that school as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I think he's 2 years older than me. But we went to school in downtown Miami, so for most people it took like an hour to get there because a lot of us lived in the suburbs. And school started at 7:30 a.m. But all of us that really, really cared about music and really wanted to do it for the rest of our lives, a lot of us would get to school really early, like at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, to be able to practice before school started. And then we'd stay after school until very late practicing too. At the time I was practicing classical piano, but I just remember going to some water, going to the bathroom or something from the practice room, and I heard in one of the classrooms people playing jazz. So I kind of opened the door a little bit and I saw Obed playing drums, and I just saw this magic that was happening in the room. It seemed like all the kids that were playing were really present. They were in the moment. They were expressing themselves, and they were working together. And not to say that doesn't happen in classical music, but there's a very distinct character specifically in jazz and improvised music. And yeah, I mean, I I play with Obed kind of on a regular basis, and every time I see him, I say thank you because yeah, he's probably the reason that I ended up down this path in my life,
Wow.
and and it's just funny because he says that he kind of remembers me kind of opening the door when they were playing. So it's yeah.
Wow, that's quite a cool story. How did you then start discovering? I mean, the did you go, the usual way, started to figure out who were the jazz pianists from the history, or like what was your path there to learning the language? I mean,
I'm
uh,
I'm
sorry.
really sorry, but the connection got all
Oh
off.
yeah,
I
sorry.
couldn't understand.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, how did you
Yeah.
then learn the jazz language? I mean, which discovering the jazz pianists, and like how did that story go?
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a place in Miami called Titanic, which was like a restaurant brewery place. It was right outside of the University of Miami. And at Tuesday nights, there were jam sessions there. And I don't think I missed a single week. Um, yeah, I'd be exhausted the next day because I'd get to school at like 6 in the morning, but I would be there till 1 in the morning the day before, just playing and listening to people. Ernesto Simpson was a
Hmm.
drummer that I played with a lot at that time. He lives in England now.
Yeah.
And Armando Gola was a bass player at the time that was living there. Both of them played with Gonzalo Rubalcaba
Yeah, sure.
a lot. So yeah, they were kind of the two musicians that I was really just constantly asking questions and just really checking out everything they were doing. And then I was just trying to listen to as much music as I could. The musicians that I kind of stumbled onto that really caught me were and I think it's for a lot of pianists, Oscar Peterson. I was into him and Keith Jarrett. It's kind of two very different players, but it
Yeah.
felt like there was something genuine coming out of them. It sounded different, but the source was the same. I also really loved Duke Ellington at the time, and I hated John Coltrane the first year that I heard him, and then the second year, I used to I used to fall asleep every night listening to Live at the Village Vanguard. I couldn't stop, and I haven't stopped since then.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Oh, well, that's quite cool. Uh, how, how did you then decide to move to New York? I mean, and what was the main trigger for that? And I mean, you moved like when you were 20, right? Or 19 actually, or and
Yeah, I was 19. Yeah.
uh and
Yeah.
how did that happen? And especially, becoming part of the scene in the early 2000s. I mean, how was that for you?
Well, I think I may be kind of an anomaly because a lot of people that I know had, very clear sort of plans. They wanted to play with this person and they wanted to have an album at this time. And, they really had like a schedule in mind.
Yeah.
And I was never like that. I mean, to be honest, I didn't really think about what it would entail to be a successful musician. Once I started traveling all the time, I realized, oh, this is this is what it means to be a musician. To be honest, I was just fascinated with music, and I wanted to learn more about it. I wanted to
Hmm.
be exposed to sounds that I had never heard before. That's the main goal that I still have to this day. I just want to hear something that I've never heard before, because it makes me feel a certain way. But aside from that, I I was very fascinated by New York City, just the place on its own, not besides the music. Um, Although my mom was born in Cuba, she was kind of a hippie, and she went back to so she grew. Her parents left Cuba when she was 7 years old, and she grew up in New York
Oh,
and
okay.
then in Long Island. Yeah, and she became a hippie, and went back to Cuba and took my grandparents back to Cuba with her, and she never graduated high school. So I had heard all this about New York from her. And when I was in the 7th grade or 6th grade, I went up to New York with South Miami Elementary to sing at Carnegie Hall as part of these big choirs. And I just thought to myself, I'm gonna come back to this place. I was just, as much as I love nature and the natural world, it felt like New York was like a whole different jungle that was very intriguing to me.
Yeah. And so you remember the first time when you arrived? Like, I mean, because you went to study, right? New York initially, or?
Yeah. Well, yeah. The first time I was there was as a kid. It must have been 1996, something like that. 1997. I went without my parents. It was just a school field trip. And then I went for the audition to Manhattan School of Music in the middle of winter, and I didn't have a coat because I just I was freezing. And yeah, I remember I was just looking for an excuse to go to New York, and I felt like going to school was probably the best thing. I had advice from a few people that unless you get a full scholarship to these schools, it's just crazy to be in so much debt to play jazz piano. Yeah. So luckily the audition went well. I was offered a full ride at Manhattan School of Music, so I went. And I lived in the Bronx for the first 2 years. One of the first things I did was go to the cemetery up in the Bronx where Miles Davis is buried. And that was a memorable experience. It's a woodland cemetery.
It's amazing. Yeah. Did you start going to jam sessions immediately, like meeting people and making connections when you arrived, or not really?
Not so much. I was really interested in orchestration and orchestra, so I was spending a lot of time just analyzing scores in the library at Manhattan School of Music. I was also extremely broke. I couldn't afford to.
Yeah.
My budget, I think, was like $20 for food a week.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, the first few years, I got a couple of odd jobs. I would work in theaters as an usher. I would clean percussion equipment. I worked at a recording studio helping with cables and stuff. But I had met people throughout the years. I did Grammy band before that, and I also was able to go to Stanford Jazz Workshop when I was a teenager.
Okay. And
I met, that's where I met most people. I met Ambrose there and Justin Brown. I met Joe Sanders as well.
Yeah.
And they all eventually got to New York. And then, I was never one to seek it out. Luckily, people would ask me to play. So, yeah.
How did then this story with Terence Blanchard happen? I mean, how did he ask you? I mean, where did he see you? I mean, you spent like quite a long time with him, and he's been known for kind of, finding young players.
Yeah, he was teaching at the Monk Institute at the time, and he asked Ambrose for if he knew of anybody coming up, and my name came up.
Oh, okay.
So honestly, I didn't realize I was in the band till about 2 months after I played a few gigs with him. Because at the time, Aaron Parks was in the band, and I thought I was just subbing. But 13 years later.
How was the first gig with him? I mean, rehearsal and playing with him. How was he as a band leader, especially to you guys, to younger guys? I mean,
well, the first gig was really funny because it was somewhere in the Midwest. I don't remember where, but all their luggage had gotten lost. I was very nervous. I'm surprised I didn't pass out. I was very nervous. But everybody was just dressed like everyday clothes on stage, and I thought, wow, this is great. Because I'm not one. I don't like dressing up and stuff. But I didn't realize it's because their luggage had gotten lost. The next gig, everybody was very well dressed. So, the band with Terence. I think the most distinct thing about that experience is the I don't know if freedom is the right word, but in a lot of other musical situations that I've been in, it's been very sort of structured that, everybody's got their role and these compositions are like this and things have to go in this direction and there has to be a crescendo here, a climax here, and then come down. I never felt that. I mean, sometimes I felt it in Terence's band, but there was a lot more liberty to express yourself and take risks, and change the direction of an arrangement on stage at any time if you feel like that's really grooving with you, like if you feel like that's funny because Ambrose took that to a whole other level. This year I played with Ambrose. I did a week at the Vanguard with him, and it's on a whole other galaxy. It was it was really, really fun doing that week with Ambrose, and just as a trumpet player to do 12 sets, 12 75-minute long sets, the way that he plays with I don't know how his lips were still intact. It was
Are you guys preparing something new? I mean, was that a new material that you played, or by the way, with Ambrose?
I mean, you'd have to ask Ambrose.
Okay.
I have a few coming up with him. Unfortunately, there's some that I couldn't do that he asked me to do.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Okay. I'm curious. Okay.
I think we both like playing with each other. So.
Yeah, sure. How did you, in the midst, with playing with Terence and other people, your story as a band leader, when does that begin? I mean, I know personalities and it happened. Like, how did you decide to go also as a band leader? Did Terence also kind of encourage you that way, or like, what's the story of you as a band leader?
No. I mean, it just kind of felt like I should do that.
Okay.
It felt like I had compositions that I had written, and I've been playing with Linda and Henry a little bit, and it just felt like it was an opportunity to sort of document it. Like exactly what the word is, make a recording of it, and then I remember it felt very daunting because I wasn't used to being a band leader. Maybe 3-4 decades ago, to make an album, I don't think was as involved.
Yeah.
Because usually a record label would get involved, and as an artist, you write the tunes, you show up, record it, and that's it.
Yeah.
But these days, there's a lot more. You wear every single hat.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you find it stressful? I mean, or if you look at yourself now as a band leader, how have you developed, in a sense? Are you more comfortable in this situation now? I mean, like, or do you see, I mean, how do you see yourself as a band leader? Are you like really like a control freak, or more relaxed when you lead a band?
I'm definitely not a control freak. And I'm, because I do have a lot of respect and admiration for the craft of composition.
Yeah.
And sometimes, this music, Black American music or jazz, the culture of this music, the history of it, and the actors and the players that have been involved with it, I feel like what I enjoy listening to the absolute most isn't necessarily a very thought out composition. I like hearing Train play over blues, I like to hear Sonny Rollins play rhythm changes, So lately I'm trying to, in my mind, find some balance because I as I mentioned earlier, I'm really I'm fascinated by the architecture of putting together a composition of music, and just all the pieces that have to come together for there to be a cohesive message. But more and more as I get older, I'm questioning what's more important the envelope that message comes in or the actual message, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah. Sometimes I can't help it. I just like writing pieces that is kind of like a clock, that they're pieces together. But I don't know, maybe the next few things I compose aren't going to be quite so, I don't know, interlocking, so that there's more room for just anybody could play the music and express themselves. It's more like a canvas, you know, rather than an actual finished painting.
Yeah. Does it help I mean, obviously you played with Linda and Henry for such a long time. I guess you could call it a working band, right? It's easier for you to present a tune to them, right? I mean, it's nice to have that chance.
Yeah, I mean, we know each other's. Yeah, we all know each other's isms, you know. I mean, to be honest, Henry isn't living in New York anymore.
Oh,
He's
really?
in Puerto Rico, so
Oh, really?
we're playing together a lot less lately. Yeah. The Linda is married to me, so we do get to play together. But yeah, I just really value them as artists and musicians, and I really enjoy how they're able to both provide me like a comfortable bed when we're playing, and also just take it, slip it from underneath me and just throw me in the deep end. And yeah, it's kind of it undulates back and forth where it's like a tug and a pull and push that I really, really like with them.
Yeah. I love the two when you hear your like beautiful connection. But I wanted to ask you about Linda. You know, I did this interview with Steve Swallow last year, and you know, him and Carla Bley, obviously both also composers and players like you guys, right? And then Steve said like sometimes he would go to Carla and like, you know, check out what they're doing or talking about music. How do you guys do that with Linda? Do you sometimes discuss each other's compositions, or like talk it over? Or
yeah, you know, it's funny because for me, music was always a very personal thing, so I rarely ever spoke to anybody about music ever, because it just felt like such a individual thing, like an ephemeral thing that everybody interprets differently. So who am I to impose my views on somebody else? But you know, with Linda, we're married, so it's, you know, we do talk about music and what we like and you know, what we're working on, what we feel we need to improve as players together. Compositionally, I think we're a little different. Her approach and my approach are different, and I'm in awe of the things that she does because they just seem to come so naturally to her, and they just come from places that I would have never picked them out, and she's just able to like pluck them out of the universe and like, oh, this is a melody. So yeah, Linda's extremely gifted. She's immensely talented. Yeah. But yeah, we talk about music. She shows me things that she's checking out. Sometimes I like them, sometimes I don't, and vice versa.
Yeah, sure.
And you know, as the years have gone by, that's something that we you know, we don't have to like all the same things. Most of the time we do, but we don't, you know, we don't have to. And it's really nice to be able to spend the majority of my life with somebody that I can talk to about things and understands them. Neither one of us ever thought that we would marry a musician. But she's just such a wonderful human being that I made an exception for her.
Nice to hear that. Yeah, beautiful. I wanted to ask, you know, I mentioned personalities and, you know, your own label, and you know, you did like Walk Against Wind also on your label. And how did you decide to go that path, like creating your own label? What was the main impetus there? And
well, aside from there being very good artists, musicians that I felt should have their music heard, I also care a lot about the environment and sustainability, and I wanted to make a label that, although I don't push it on the artist to create music that explicitly has to do with the environment or sustainability. I do make sure that everybody that's on the label admits and accepts that climate change is happening and that it's a human-driven change that would not be happening as quickly as it's happening now. It's happening that way because of the greenhouse gases we're emitting. So everybody's on board with that. And that's pretty much it. I want to have good music out, or at least, since I'm curating it, what I think is good music, which I'm fine if other people don't think it's good music. That's fine. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I wanted that, but I also wanted to have some sort of organization within the music world that would sort of galvanize a conversation or be the catalyst for people taking actions to become involved and being part of the solution as far as climate change and environmental justice.
Yeah.
So, I've heard the term greenwashing get thrown around, and I'm also fine if people use that term for Biophilia Records, if that's how they feel. But from my point of view, as artists, we can provide sort of a cathartic experience for people with their emotions.
Yeah.
And additionally, we have a platform which we can use to sort of make announcements so that people hear what's going on.
Yeah.
So that we can all contribute to positive change in the world.
Yeah, nicely put. Yeah, so true. Yeah. Fabian, I just want, I know not to take too much of your time, but like one record I really liked was Dizzy Atmosphere that you made with Dave Douglas. And how did that project happen with Dave? I mean, obviously he's one generation older and like extremely important, and the Greenleaf connection happened before already, I guess, through Linda. But what's the story with Dave? I mean,
yeah, I think Dave had heard me play a little bit throughout the years. Just we crossed paths on the road and festivals and things, and in New York. I heard his music a lot because Linda. This is before we were dating or anything. I would go to their gigs because I really liked Linda and listening to the music. And yeah, so I mean, again, I think that would be a question for him.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed playing that album as well. Yeah, I love playing with Joey too.
Oh man, yeah, true.
Joey Barron. And I just love him as a human being too. So yeah, that was fun. That was recorded at the Bunker, and it was a different experience for me because Dave is one of the only musicians I've ever played with that's just one take and that's it. You're done.
Really? Oh wow. Okay.
You got one try and that's it.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, that was cool. It's a very quick session.
Wow, it must be also cool with Joey, because Joey is such an intuitive drummer.
Yeah.
What the other takes would have been, like probably completely different. Or wow, interesting, cool. What's you said you might return in the fall to more composing and thinking in terms of band leader, but like, what's otherwise on the schedule for you? Either as a band leader or a sideman. I mean, do you have any plans coming to Europe as well, or?
Well, I was in Europe 3 times this summer. I'm not sure when the next time I'll go as a leader, but I have some stuff with my wife, with Linda. I can't remember when. Sorry, a horrible plug. But I'm playing at the Vanguard with Jonathan Blake coming up.
Beautiful.
I was on Melissa Aldana's last album. I'm not sure when that's coming out.
Really? Oh wow.
And yeah, and I'll be playing a few gigs with Ambrose, I think in the US and maybe in Europe as well. And for me, I'm currently working on a project that I already had one performance of it, but it continues to evolve. It's called We Call This Home.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. What's
Um,
the story behind there? Yeah.
yeah. So I learned about a term called sacrifice zones when I attended an Al Gore conference on climate change.
Mm.
So a sacrifice zone is basically areas scattered throughout the country where most typically it's low income communities. Often it's Black, brown, and indigenous communities where the government just turns their back on them and lets a bunch of corporations come in and pollute the land, the air, the water. So that happens in South Florida. I grew up in South Florida. So I've interviewed members of the Miccosukee tribe and Seminole tribe. I spoke to the Doral community members. I video recorded, and it was actually very poignant because one of the interviews that I conducted was about a Doral incinerator. Doral is a city near Miami in Florida. And all the people that I interviewed kept raising a red flag saying that this is bad. We shouldn't have an incinerator here so close to such a, I think it's a 82% Hispanic population. And lo and behold, 3 months later, that incinerator burnt down. A huge, massive fire, which was burning for almost 2 weeks. People couldn't leave their homes. They had to wear masks outside. So anyway, I've been conducting all these interviews and then composing music to it, and it's got a visual element where I'm playing the piano, controlling clips of the videos with a foot controller that are displayed. So yeah, I'm continuing to write music for that. I'm not sure if we'll record that just yet, but I'll perform it here in Harvard next year. Also have a few commissions that I'm going to start working on. But yeah, I've prioritized being a father a lot more than almost everything else. And I don't regret it. I really,
oh man, of course.
Everybody, yeah, everybody chooses how they're going to do it. This wasn't my plan, but I really, it's just, I couldn't bear not to be around. I wanted to be around. So.
Yeah. I know. I feel the same way. I'm there where you were 1.5 years ago, so kind of like that. So. But man, thanks so much for taking the time, Fabian. I appreciate it. I will not take more of your time so that you can still chill. And
I don't know. I don't want to take up your time with a, what is it, 8-month-old? 18 months?
Yeah, she's sleeping. So we have, here it's like 10 p.m. So she went to bed at 7.
Okay.
Played a lot.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I love it.
My son just stopped napping like a month or 2 ago.
Oh.
And it's so sad. Yeah.
No, it's amazing. It's
when
amazing.
they nap in the middle of the day, like that's your opportunity to like get some stuff done or to like rest, and that's over. Like that's
yeah, I know. Yeah. It's for me it's the same, like emails and stuff comes after 8 p.m. like whatever I have to do, like okay, shit, 20 emails to answer, what, but
yeah,
but it's all worth it in the end. It's like you said,
absolutely.
It's just one of life's wonders, really.
I
can't believe it, man. So, but
yeah,
cool. Man, thanks so much for again taking the time, and I hope to catch you in Europe one day soon. So
great.
Grab a drink together. I'll pull you by your shirt and we'll talk a little. So
yeah, sounds good.
Cool.